Wasn't this astounding? I'm actually making the February update in February. It's February 29th, and I guess I've bought all the albums I'm going to for this month. I suspect this might be a sign of the apocalypse. Okay, let's begin. I first got a record from an actual record store bin from the Raiders Indian Reservation, a 71 rock album. And then we go back to my normal thrifting bins, which actually this month turned out to be extremely good. We'll start it off with a classical U.S. mono album of Grieg's Peer Gynt Suites 1 and 2. This is on the Westminster Hi-Fi Laboratory Series label. That's a... can't tell which is right side up on this one. This is a compilation album from music from the dancing years. It's a 61 jazz album, a U.S. mono pressing. Got songs from all the big people from that era. Louis Armstrong, Bing Crosby, Dinah Shore, Tommy Dorsey, Duke Ellington. The list goes on. Artie Shaw, Frank Sinatra near the bottom of the list. And then I picked up a Händel's Water Suite, or Water Music rather, 1963 classical album. My classical collection has been growing quite a bit lately. And after that I picked up, I have no idea, I just like the strange cover. It's called Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys. And somebody really went to town on it with pens and ink. According to the Discogs there, this is supposed to be a pop blues rock album, and it's a mono pressing. And it's from 1965. After that, I picked up a Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart Requiem number 626. This is was pressed in around 1965. I couldn't get an exact date on it, and it's obviously a classical album. And then here's one of the ones that I really was surprised to get hold of. I stopped in a little junk store on the way home and picked up a Grateful Dead album for $1. I mean, how can you beat that? And the Grateful Dead album is called The Grateful Dead. It's a 1967 rock album. And from there we go to Bobby Goldsboro, Honey. This is a 1968 pop album. And from there we go to Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Self-titled album. It's a gatefold if it doesn't fall apart when I open it. That's a 69 jazz blues rock album. And continuing on, this album I've almost picked up several times in the past. I've always found it totally destroyed in the cover. This time I found it in pretty good shape. It's Three Dog Night, captured live at the Forum. It is a gatefold if I can get it open. And as I said, in this case, the album itself is in a VG plus condition. So I'm not disagreeing with that one. And we swatch back to the classical albums. Tchaikovsky's selections from Swan Lake, Still in the Shrink. That's a 1970 classical album. And then we picked up Kenny Ball and his jazz band at the Jazz Band Ball. This is a 1970 jazz album. And it's on a Marble label. Can't quite say I've ever seen that label before. Quite interesting. And from there we go to a Eric Clapton album, self-titled Eric Clapton. If I can find the year, this was a 1972 blues rock album. It's also in, it's got an inner sleeve. Huh. Okay. Yeah, not going to take it out of the inner sleeve. It's on the Polydor label, and it's also in VG Plus condition. So, like I said, I did pretty good this month for picking up albums. That's followed by a Moe Koffman, Best of Moe Koffman, 1975 Jazz Soul album. And then a compilation. This is, may not be to all tastes, 18th century music for oboe and organ. It's a 1975 classical album pressed in the UK. And, okay, it's also in VG Plus, the even better condition. On the ORYX label, I tried to pronounce that. Oryx? Hard today. Where'd I leave off? Oh, yeah. Then we have Monteverdi's Vespers. This is a, I was almost going to say it's a disco album. 1976 classical album, a U.S. quadraphonic pressing. And it's still in the shrink. And albums I picked up just because I happen to like their cover. I have no idea who the band is. Lavender Hill Mob, a self-titled album, the Lavender Hill Mob. Apparently it's a disco album, so I don't know about that one. And from there we went on to pick up a Jethro Tull Heavy Horses album, a 1978 rock album. Also, well, it's got its inner sleeve, and I'd put it at easily VG Plus. I just grabbed it with my hand. Easily VG Plus condition. And we continue on. This is a Christmas album. John Denver and the Muppets do Christmas, or Christmas Together. It's a 1978 rock album, and it is a gatefold. So it'll have to go into the Christmas pile. It's followed by a Joni Mitchell Mingus album, 1979 pop album. Also a, well, gatefoldy. It's got artwork in the middle. I don't know if I can show that. Oh, and then it goes, I can't get it open. There we go. Artwork on one side and the lyrics and more pictures on the other. That was a... Oh, let me pull it out. Oh, it's on Asylum. I guess all her records are on Asylum Records. I didn't even know the album existed. So that was a neat find. From there, we moved on to Robert and Sarah Feuerstein, an album called Transmutations. It's a 1979 jazz classical album. I haven't heard it, so I'm kind of interested to see what the jazz classical sounds like. And from there, we moved on to another Clapton album. It's called Just One Night. It is a double album. Oh, almost threw the album out the cover since it, oh no, it does have its inner sleeves. Okay, I guess I didn't almost throw it out. I just noticed it's got, how'd they manage that? It's got pen writing on the black cover. You can barely see it. It'll be interesting to get off. Okay, from Clapton we moved on to XTC, called Black Sea. Again, I've never heard XTC before, but I liked the cover, so I picked it up. It's a 1980 New Wave album. And then Bing Crosby, Bing Sings Broadway, a 1982 pop stage album printed in the pressed in the UK. And we're back to classical. Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, the Complete Ballet, a 1986 classical pressed in the UK. It is a gatefold. And we're almost at the end. Then I picked up a Frantics album, A Boot to the Head, 1987 comedy album, another one I got for $1. And according to Discogs, it's worth quite a few pennies. So it's on the Attic label. So we're not going to complain about that. I'm not quite sure what a Frantics album is. It's comedy of some kind. From there I moved on to Beethoven's Math in C, Opus 86, unknown year. It is a classical album. And finally, Rachmaninoff's Concerto No. 3 in D minor, Opus 30. Another one I couldn't nail down the year on, and it is obviously another classical album. And that does it for February. I'm still astounded I managed to get the video done in the same month as I picked up all the records. So long as the skies doesn't come crashing down, so long, bye-bye, and see you around on the tube thing.